Good evening, friends. This is Vikash Agarwal once again from Empathic Consulting. Today, we are going to discuss about the implication of most awaited GST notification, the notification number 18 2022 Central Tax dated 28 September 2022, which finally notifies 1st day of October 2022 as the effective date for applicability of various provisions of Finance Act 2022, which had extended the last date for availing input tax credit for issuing credit note for amendment and rectifications, in particular submitted through various GST returns for the immediately preceding financial year, and the date has been extended to 30th November of the following that particular financial year. The amended law provides 30th November as the last date for all the above activities. Now it appears that it has been done to bring uniformity in the cutoff date for all corrections related to a preceding financial year. Now let us see in the later part of the video that whether it brings uniformity or it has sparked another fire, or what I mean is it has created another confusions. A most important question here is that whether these changes are applicable the financial year 21-22 or not. Well, it depends on the fact that whether the existing timeline was up to 30th September or it was beyond 30th of September. Because if the existing timeline had already expired on 30th September, it cannot be extended by an act which itself is effective from 1st of October. So let us check one by one. The first change is related to last date for availment of input tax credit. Okay. So section 100B of the Finance Act 2022 amends section 64, section 16, subsection 4 of the CGST Act. Earlier, the due date for availing input tax credit for immediately preceding financial year was the date of furnishing of GSTR 3B return for the month of September. So there was a lot of confusion among the taxpayer for regarding this due date. Many taxpayer had interpreted that ITC related to preceding financial year could be availed up to 30th September and reported in GST return of October. Whereas technically the last date, so well, okay, if with the first interpretation, if the last date was 30th September, then this amendment effective from 1st October doesn't become applicable for financial year 21-22. But wait, that is not the case. Technically, the last date to avail the ITC was 21st of October. So not in the GSTR 3B return. Rather, up to 21st of October, you could literally avail in the books of accounts, which you could have reported in the GST return of November. So this way, your last date was not 30th of September, rather it was 21st of October for availing in books of accounts. So therefore, the extended timeline of 30th of November is applicable for the financial year 21-22 for availing input tax credit. So now you can avail input tax credit in your books of accounts up to 30th of November, and the same can be reported in the GSTR 3B return of November, which is to be filed in the month of December. Okay, let's move to another change. So another change is in relation to issue of credit note. So we have to take care that the timeline prescribed are for activity or for reporting of the activity. So in the first case, the timeline had been defined for availing input tax credit, that is the activity. In this case, the timeline had been defined for reporting of that activity. We will see that the timeline has been defined for reporting of the credit note in the GSTR 3B return, rather, or any GST return, rather not for issuing of credit note. So let's see, it says that section 102 of the Finance Act 2022 amends section 34 subsection 2 of the CGST Act. It replaces the word September with the word 30th November, 30th day of November. The revised timeline, therefore, for the reporting of credit notes issued in relation to supplies made during the preceding financial year is now 30th of November. Earlier it was September, which means you could report it in the month of September, for the month of September, which the return for which was to be filed in October. But now, when the timeline for reporting of credit note has been defined as a date, 30th of November, it means it doesn't define that you are going to report it in which return or return of which month. It simply says you report it in the return of whichever month, the same must have been filed by 30th of November. So in this way, practically you can report the credit note issued for financial year 21-22 in the month of for in the GSTR 3B returns for the month of October 2022, which is to be filed by 21st of November, which is prior to 30th of November. Now, the interesting thing here to note is that if you file the return of October as a delayed return, then you get the opportunity to report the credit note only if you file the delayed return up to 30th of November. If you filed the return of October, even the return of October beyond 30th of November, then technically, as per the amended provision, you lose the opportunity to report the rectification in credit notes for financial year 21-22 in the GST return, which is filed beyond 30th of November. Okay. So, to summarize, the notification is meant to providing timeline for issue of credit note up to reporting of credit note up to 30th of November. This much clarity is required in the sense to the extent that the practically taxpayers are getting the timeline up to October only. Because if you issue the credit note up to 30th of October, then only you will be able to report the same in the month of October, the return for which is to be filed in the month of November. So practically, it appears that the law has been meant to provide the timeline for issue of credit note up to 30th of November, but it has been drafted in such a way that taxpayer are getting timeline for issue of credit note only up to 31st of October. Beyond that, it is ambiguous. It is there is lot of lack of clarity, and it requires attention of the board, so that board comes forward and clarify this matter, and rather simplify the law by way of maybe another notification. Okay, let's go to the another change. The third change is related to amendment of errors or omissions in GSTR 1. Section 103C of the Finance Act 2022 amends the proviso to section 37 subsection 3 of the CGST Act. Before the amendment, the first proviso to section 37(3) provided that rectification of error or omission in respect of details furnished in GSTR 1 could be done prior to filing of GSTR 3B return for the month of September, followed by the financial year to which such details pertains or furnishing of relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. So again, mind you, the earlier due date was linked to the date of actual filing of 3B and not the due date of filing of 3B return of the for the month of September. Saying that if a taxpayer had not furnished 3B return for the month of September, say by 12th of November, then as per the earlier provision, the taxpayer could have rectified any error or omission related to the particular financial year in GSTR 1 for October to be filed by 11th of November. However, now the first proviso to section 37(3) has been amended to provide that any such error or omission can be rectified in GSTR 1 not later than 30th day of November following the related financial year. So again, which means that rectification for financial year 21-22 can be done up to GSTR 1 to be filed for the month of October, not November, if the same is filed within due date or max by 30th November if filed delayed. Because if it is filed delayed and beyond 30th November, then again technically use the opportunity to do the amendment or rectification. So again, the notification is worded in such a way that practically taxpayer is not getting time for correction up to 30th of November. So once again, air needs to be cleared by the finance ministry, maybe through another notification. Here comes another change. Another change is related to rectification of errors, omission or incorrect particulars in GSTR 3B return, in GSTR 4 which is to be filed by taxpayer under composition scheme, GSTR 7 which is to be filed by person responsible for deduction of tax, that is TDS return, which is filed under section 51 of the CGST Act, GSTR 6 which is to be filed by input service distributor, and GSTR 5 which is to be filed by registered person, registered non-resident taxable person. Now, section 105 clause C of the Finance Act 2022 amends the proviso to section 39(9) of the CGST Act and replaces the word the due date of furnishing of return for the month of September or second quarter with 30th day of November. The amended Section 39(9) and the first proviso provides that taxpayer can rectify an omission or incorrect particulars furnished in GSTR 3B return, GSTR 3B, GSTR 4, GSTR 5, GSTR 6 or GSTR 7 by 30th day of November following the financial year to which such rectification is related to. So once again, rectification of financial year 21-22 can be done up to the GSTR 3B, 4, 5, 6 or 7 as applicable, which is to be filed for October. Because once again, the timeline has been defined for not for activity, but rather for reporting in the return. And again, if you have to report in the return by 30th of November, then of course, the practically you get the window to amend the same in the return of October only, because 30 up to 30th November you are going to file the return of October only. You can't file the return of the month of November in the November by 30th November itself. So but again, in the month of November, October's return also you can amend only if it is filed within due date or max by 30th November if filed delayed. Which means if the return of October is again delayed and filed beyond 30th November, then technically the window for rectification will be closed. One more change. The last change is related to rectification of errors, omission or incorrect particulars in the statement or return filed with respect to collection of tax at source, which means TCS returns, which is to be filed in GSTR 8. Section 112 of Finance Act 2022 amends the proviso to Section 52(6) of the CGST Act and replaces the words due date for furnishing of statement of month of September with the words 30th day of November. So the amended provisions allows rectification of an omission or incorrect particulars furnished in GSTR 8 by 30th day of November following the financial year to which such rectification is related to. Hence, with respect to financial year 21-22, rectification can again be done up to GSTR 8 to be filed for October if filed within due date or max by 30th November if filed delayed. Which again means that return of October is delayed and filed beyond 30th November, then window for rectification closes as per the amended provision. So you can see practically, though the word 30th November is common in all these amendments, yet the taxpayer are getting timeline only up to 30th of October with respect to all the amendments except only for availing input tax credit, for which you get practically the timeline up to 30th of November. For input tax credit, you can avail up to 30th of November and report in the month of December while filing the return for the month of November. While all the other change, practically you get the timeline up to 30th of October only for amendment in your books of accounts, and you can report all these changes in the return of October to be filed by 30th November. So trust this information in the video was useful for you. We'll see you in another video on another GST matter very soon.